Hi everyone. Welcome back to the final session of the day. Phones back on silent. Exits are right where you came in. My name's Anna Emerson. I'm a site reliability engineer at Google down in Sydney. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm very happy to be introducing our next speaker, Marion Zalk. Our last session in this room talked about how to get girls interested in technology. And Marion is going to speak to how to keep them interested and engaged. So without further ado, welcome Marion.
Okay, hello everyone. Thanks very much for coming to my presentation. I'm going to talk a bit about what we're doing at the University of Melbourne to try and keep females interested in computer science. And I'd just like to acknowledge that it's not just me working on this. There's Professor Karen Support, who's also here, and Dr. Nick Beard, and he's back in Melbourne giving the lectures for our Foundations course. So there's a few of us working on this, and this is just one initiative. There's obviously many things that we are trying to do. So that's just the blurb, a bit about me. Firstly, this picture was taken in far north Queensland, so like Jackie Copeland was showing all the photos about where she's been in far north Queensland. Funny enough, I was also in far north Queensland 2 weeks ago, and this is Cape Tribulation, so weird coincidence, but that's my contribution, and I was also there. So I've just finished my PhD, and before embarking on that journey, I worked in industry. So I did a Bachelor of Science degree, I did maths, I did physiology, I did psychology, and then I thought in order to be more employable, I should do computer science, which I did, and was employable, and I got a job. I started working at a wealth management financial organization, and my manager hired us to work on a new development, and we were going to rewrite the existing software using Java, and there were 3 of us, and he asked Heinz to do the data bit, the database stuff, so the design of how we were going to store the data that we had coming in from all the different companies. He asked Udo, my other teammate, to do the logic layer, so how these calculations were done for the investors and the brokers, how the funds were doing, how much commission the brokers were earning, and then he asked me to do the front end because I could make it look pretty. And I came in same skills as them, and that was my role. So I then moved into London, and I worked firstly as an IT consultant, but then also I worked at Citigroup, I worked on the trading floor with equity derivatives, I worked at UBS in wealth management, and in all my roles I was the only female, and also because it was the financial industry, I was really the only female very often. And so I've been there, done that. So I'm back at university, and I want to change it a bit for the females coming in. So if you read the literature, so this is a research project, it's also a social impact initiative, but the research behind what we're doing is that there's this leaky pipeline that you may have heard about in earlier presentations, and what that means is that in every single point we are losing females. Primary school, secondary school, university, workforce, there are females dropping off. So some of the research comes from America, some of the research comes from Australia. So in an Australian context, I'm going to discuss some of the findings from the Australian government, so about our context specifically, and I'm just going to go through it really very quickly because just to bring you up to speed on where we fit in. And I just want to qualify that all the research shows there's no cognitive differences. So what's happening isn't due to cognitive differences, it's happening due to other factors. So at a primary school level, even, you have your primary school students drawing a male scientist, not a female scientist. If you ask females about how confident they feel in their maths ability, they'll rate it less than males. So where objectively there's no difference, subjectively they have this perception that they're not as good as the boy sitting next to them. This continues through high school, so got to do a choice of subjects. You have physics, you have 3-to-1 ratio. In maths, you have an almost 2-to-1 ratio. So all along the way, we're losing females. And then we get to university, and 16% of vocational and university graduates are female for STEM subjects. So now bringing it back to computer science, so that's what I'm going to speak about specifically. I'm not going to speak about STEM as a whole. I'm going to speak about computer science because that's where our initiative is. In terms of information technology, in terms of Australia-wide, the report found there was 13% at an undergraduate level, not so different actually from engineering, which is 14%, and postgrad level is a bit better. In terms of Melbourne, we're not so bad currently. We're at 17%, which is better than the 13%, but it's not good. So this is our data. So we looked at the data. If I just jump back to the slide before, 2014, 2015, 2016, and this is the data for 2015, 2016, 2017. And if you look at the females coming in and females coming out, so we start off over here, and we have our first year course, which is the one that I'm involved with in teaching. And I think it was, let me just check the exact number because I added it up before I got you, 658 students in our first year subject in 2015. And if we break that up in terms of percentages, 29% are female. What that means is that 191 of them are female, of these 650 odd, and 467 are male. So from this subject, we go on to foundations of algorithms, which is our second year subject. And out of that 191, we had 68 go into the next subject. But in males, we had 245. So if you look at that, that's over 50% of the males are continuing, and just over a third of the females are continuing. So that's quite a big jump before you even get to our third year subjects, as we're losing more. So this initiative is placed right in here, right in this first year subject, and we're looking at, I can use the pointer for that, right in that first year subject, trying to get more of those females to even go on to the next subject and hopefully follow on. So these graphs just show we've done in abilities in terms of actual scores, and the performance is no difference between males and females. They're pretty much the same. So this initiative came about through talking to actual female students. So Karen was talking to some of our women in tech, and our female students, they were undergrads, they're now actually master's students, and they're actually going off to start their full-time jobs next year because they're still around the department and we speak to them. So this came about talking to them, and they suggested, why don't we try this female-only workshop. And what this means is practically, for these 658 students, we have something like 32 workshops, so about 22 people per workshop. So this is in addition to the lectures where they practice their programming skills and they learn more the art of programming. And just close one off, have female tutors, female demonstrators, and only females or people who identify as females can register for this workshop. So there's no difference in the content. We're not teaching them anything more basic or anything like that. It is the exact same content. The only difference is the people teaching them are females and the students in the class are females. And the first time we did this was in 2018 semester 1. And I should say we've got ethics for this, and we have ethics for doing our survey at the end. We have obviously done that. Sorry, wrong way. And the reason why, when we started looking at the literature, what we were trying to address by doing this was how females perceive the learning environment. So in the 80s, they started talking about something called a chilly climate, which has got nothing to do with climate change. It's got to do with a female learning environment where way males and females interact in a learning environment, that sometimes the females are interrupted more than males. Males tend to ask more follow-on questions. Tone of voice, perhaps, in answering when a female student asks a question, the tone of voice when answering that question as opposed to when a male answers that question, asks the same question. All these sort of things were studied, and females found some very subtle cues and some not so subtle cues about how they were learning or affecting their learning. And in terms of an Australian context, so some of the experiences of females in a learning environment matches quite a lot of what minority students find across the board, that they feel quite isolated. They find this lack of community. They feel like they're the only ones there. They're stereotyped. And linked to that, there does tend to be this Australian culture that computer science is just a masculine domain. It's for men. And that's how females feel. So that's some of the literature to complement some of the things that our students were saying. And so what we did was we offered this workshop. We advertised it. It's completely optional, so a female can go and register for it. They don't have to register for it. And it's advertised, and they email to register into it. And like I said, we do have ethics to do so. And as we started running it, we obviously looked at, is it doing what we wanted to do? And we found, so I should say every semester we've had about 25 females register for this course. We found both qualitative and quantitative support for it being a good initiative or worthwhile initiative. Perhaps some of the qualitative support, let me discuss some of the qualitative support that we found. So this was a female that emailed me at the beginning of last semester saying, I went to the normal workshop. I just feel like everyone else knows more than me. I want to start off in a different sort of environment where I feel more comfortable actually asking questions, because I don't feel like they're going to think it's a stupid question, because that's how I feel at the moment. And let me just preface this by saying is that people who are doing this course, males and females, have this pretty much no experience. So students that have experience can write a proficiency test and skip to the next course. So her perception that the males in the class know more than her is actually probably not accurate, because they would have written proficiency test and skipped to the next subject if they did know more than her. So this perception that men know more than us, which is incorrect perception, is why some females feel like they would like this environment. They do find it very male-dominated. They want to be in a different sort of environment with more females, a boys' tech, club tech. I want to develop my confidence in a safe environment. I want to make friends. So to complement this, we have some quantitative data. So these are just 4 quotes that I've taken out of, there were 100, like all the females that enrolled. There's like tons of this. I just want to learn in a safer environment. I want to test my coding against my peers and not against other people. And so what we found was, so we looked at the end of this tutorial and we said, how many of those students that we registered in this workshop actually went on to our next course, and how many of them stayed or didn't? So we found that in this workshop, actually 50%. So 50% went on. And if you compare that to our general overall cohort, we only had 30% move on. So some of these people in this 50%, some of them were more interested in computing to begin with and changed their minds, and some of them were less interested and became more interested after this workshop and decided to move on. Whereas we kind of stuck here with our 30% of females. We've got them in, they've started computing, and only 30 of them are moving on. So we're getting a bit more to move on to the next course, and hopefully by starting off with that 50% can carry on to second semester, carry on to second year, move on to third year, and hopefully, back to that original graph where we only have 17% of females actually finishing in third year, we actually will have managed to get that up, which is our ideal goal. So our findings are, the quantitative and the qualitative findings basically show that we are addressing a need. There are females that feel that this is beneficial to their learning. Having this learning environment to begin allows them to figure out if they actually are good at programming, if they do enjoy programming. They can ask the questions, those foundation questions that they need to ask without feeling like they're stupid questions, that people will laugh at them, people will think they're dumb. We can get the foundations really strong, that they know what they're doing. What we're doing in terms of our surveying, we're following these students now every year to see if they are we are having that flow-on effect, that in second year they're still doing computer science subjects, in third year they're still doing computer science subjects. So we did survey at the end of last year, and it does seem that 50% are still moving on. So of that cohort, we have done something. And as part of our survey, we do have this open-ended question saying, listen, we don't know the answers, tell us what you think, how do you think we can, and the survey goes out to men and women, it doesn't just go out to the females or the females in the workshop, it goes out to the whole student cohort. And it's a very open-ended question. What do you think? Give us your opinion, give us an idea, tell us what we should be doing. So we're doing that every semester, trying to find ideas for initiatives that we can do to address the problem. So while we find that there is this demand, that females do want this separate workshop, we will offer it. And we're hoping that by kind of doing this initiative in first year, we're influencing our rates, obviously our retention rates through university up until third year, so we can get that number up from 17%, which it seems kind of stuck at, and like I say, the Australian-wide number of, I think it was 13% in the report, so try and get that number up, and that should hopefully have a flow-on effect to the workforce, so that these females that do enter the workforce in a better position. So here's the end of the report in terms of the workplace, in that we have, you have female academics for information technology and engineering. We have more at a junior level. We keep on having this attrition rate that we just, at every single level that females are dropping off. And in terms of, this is the gender pay gap, which hopefully if we have a stronger female workforce, we can somehow land up getting us paid more, influence that. So that's where our initiative lies. We can't obviously do anything about the primary school. Well, we're not addressing the primary school, we're not addressing the high school issues. I've been to some lovely talks today about some of the things that other people are doing. They're really amazing. But at a university level, and this is obviously to complement the women in tech, we have lots of community, women community groups that will help. But I think there's something different to sitting in a lecture and sitting next to a female student, or having a female student you can ask a question to, a female tutor, a female lab demonstrator that you can approach, that you don't feel like they're going to make fun of me, they're going to think I'm stupid. Having that at the beginning is something that I think is definitely benefiting female students and giving them the confidence to carry on, at least not letting that being a barrier to them carrying on in their career. And that's all the references. It's a research project, And any questions? I imagine there will be quite a few questions. So yeah, any questions? Oh. I think your hand was up first.
I'm actually a graduate of Melani, and that would have been amazing when I was there.
Oh, thank you.
Have you seen other departments, like the engineering department, look at your success and start to think about implementing that?
We haven't. To be honest, when I finished, so we did it in semester 1 of 2018. And since then, I think I had a student, so one of the female students from that semester actually emailed me when she did Comp 10,002 and said, you're going to get this offered for Comp 10,002 as well. So there was only one student that wanted it further along in computer science, but in terms of other engineering, not that I know of, yeah. No, that's fair enough.
Where I come from, culturally, sometimes men find it disconcerting to study alongside women, and this is, a huge problem, which we feel is inhibiting women from learning and things like that. So I'm just wondering, because this is a really tricky slope, right? So did you get any requests for male-only classes, or is that something that you would consider also?
So we tried this also in a master's subject. So our master's subjects don't have the same same ratio. We have more 50-50 in our master's subjects, and we did offer it in our master's subjects. So we offered a female-only workshop and a male-only workshop, and there were takers for the female-only workshop, and there were no takers for the male-only workshop. So for 2 semesters, we offered it, and no interest. So we haven't done it in this course specifically, but we have done it, and we've had no interest. So, yeah. Yes.
Possibly some accounting factors to account for here, but did you notice any difference in the academic results between students who are in the female-only classes compared to the mixed classes?
I didn't actually compare it. I actually haven't compared the actual results. I did compare the results of that cohort, that specific graph that I showed you, that 2018, the male and female of the whole cohort. And I actually thought I'd made a mistake in the results because they were completely identical. I had to double check myself that I hadn't made an error. It was actually scary how similar they were. I haven't done it for this cohort. I don't actually, I don't know if I need ethics to do so because I know who the students are and doing things. So I haven't done it, but yeah. The idea isn't, because we haven't found a problem with their academic performance. That's not the issue that we're addressing at all. We're addressing their perceptions and their attrition. So that's the numbers that we're looking at. We don't have a problem with their scores.
I guess I'm curious whether
the learning environment actually,
would actually help, improve those results further.
Yeah. The learning environment is just there to improve their perception of their own learning. Yeah. Yes.
I'm curious about the fact that you sent this survey out to the entire student body.
Yeah.
And you're obviously seeking feedback from everyone. Did you get any overtly negative or let's be a bit stronger, really hostile?
Yes.
Responses
Yes.
in that survey?
Yes, I got some very interesting comments. I was actually going to put them up. I debated putting them up. I didn't think I'd have enough time to talk about them, to be honest. There were some, and completely, that's fine. The idea of putting it as optional is that if you do feel that that is something that would help you, you're welcome to enroll in it. I got negative feedback from females as well, not males only, so it's got nothing to do with a gender thing. And some of that feedback resonated with some of the thoughts that had gone through my head, in that, like I gave you some of my history in that I worked in industry, and my initial hesitation was that, you know, I'm going to work in this environment, what's the point of going to, you know, this false learning environment when I'm going to want to work with these people anyway? Like, why would I do that to myself? I have to learn to work with them from day one. So, you know, interesting variations of that, some more polite than others. You know, some things like, you know, are we going back to the dark ages? You know, very interesting comments, and fair enough, and that's okay, because it's not, we're not trying to address every single problem. We're trying to help certain females that feel there's certain perceptions of the culture around us that may influence them continuing along this path, and that's what it's meant to do. So, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it's a good read. I'm happy to share it with you if you want to hear more about it. Yes. Okay.
Very quick.
Yeah,
Okay,
I did an experiment. I teach a large first year class, and I did an experiment very much like this in semester 2 of the
Yeah.
I got different results. One of the things that I found subsequently that I think actually worked very well was the selection of the tutors was crucial. And I now have most of my tutors women. And I think carefully controlling the learning environment is absolutely crucial. I just wonder, maybe get this offline, but if you could disentangle the learning environment you provide from the fact that the cohort is all female.
Yes, so some of the things we did look at, I should say this is part of, there's a lot of things we looked at in the survey. We looked at males' perception of tutors and demonstrators. We looked at females' perceptions of things. We found some males didn't like having male tutors. So there's all sorts of interesting things that came up when we actually looked at this data. Our aim is to, I think overall have our tutors should be a very mixed bunch. So I do some tutor selection. In fact, I do all the tutor selection, and considering we had 56 tutorials in semester 1, it's a non-trivial task. So we do a mix of gender in terms of lab demonstrators, a mix of experience, so postgrads, undergrads, you know, diversity. There's a lot that we do definitely try. But some of our survey results, for the most part, some of our survey results didn't come out significantly different. There was a few interesting things that we found, but that's a separate to this talk. Is that it?
Yeah, that's all we have
Sorry, no more
time for
questions?
today.
I'll hang around if anyone wants to ask me anything.
Are you going to the reception afterwards?
Yes, come
Great.
find me. I'm happy to chat. I can chat about that.
Thank you so much, Marion.